All right, so for this video, we are going to do Emad. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name properly, but she is a 31-year-old actress and model from Egypt. And I don't really know too much about this person, but the only reason why I did it is because, one of my subscribers told me to, do a video on it, which I'm doing right now. And also, I felt like, she has some very unique qualities and features about her that kind of separates her from the rest. And yeah. All right, so her overall rating that I gave her is a 7.2. How rare is that? That is 1 in 210 people. The percentage or the percentile is the top 0.5%. For the side facial score, she gets a 56%. Front facial score, I gave her 59%. Total facial harmony, 58%. Facial dimorphism is a 6. Body fat factors is a 9.5. And the miscellaneous features, I gave her an 8.5. I have the tier list to the right side. Tier 1 is ideal. Tier 2 is near ideal. Tier 3 is normal. Tier 4 is a slight flaw. Tier 5 is a flaw. Tier 6 is a huge flaw. And Tier 7 breaks harmony. All right, so for overall facial assessment breakdown. So let's start off with the worst features. So for worst features, I said that she has too much chin projection, which I will talk about later. She also has a narrow head from the side, which is considered to be an angel skull shape. So if you type on Google what an angel skull shape is, it's something that's, I think it came from like TikTok or something like that. But it's usually how women, women typically describe their facial assessment from the side profile view. I also said that she has a face that may appear flat from the side view profile. And what I mean by that is the facial convexity. So it might appear just flat and non-projected from the mid-face point. She also has a slight long chin for her face. I will talk about that later. She also has horrible eye distancing. I will talk about that as well. And she also has a short lower lip vertically. So her lower lip can be much more fuller and it will have a better ratio compared to her upper lip. All right, so the best features are she has a good head shape overall. She has a high hyoid bone, very symmetrical face, pronounced cheekbones. So, her cheekbones protrude out a lot. And she also has perfect lip alignment, which I will talk about as well. And she also has a long and dark eyebrows. So having long eyebrows is good, and having dark eyebrows is also very good as well. It means that they're dense, and having a lot of, hair follicles within your eyebrows is something that you need as well. All right, so for the facial dimorphism, we're looking at the female side, and I gave her a check on a lot of things, actually, a good amount of things. For the nasolabial angle, how upturned the nose is, I gave that a check. Canthal tilt, so how upturned are the eyes, gave that a check. Eye aspect ratio, so do you have almond-shaped eyes, gave that a check. Eyebrow settiness, so how low set is the eyes relative to the actual eye, gave that a check. Dominant middle third, is your middle third the longest, gave that a check. Jaw frontal angle, she doesn't have the proper jaw frontal angle, but it's close enough, so I gave her half points for that. The mouth to nose width, so how wide is your mouth relative to your nose, and does it harmonize well with your face, I gave that a check. And the total face to height width ratio, so how long is your head, I gave that half a point. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the facial dimorphism. And we're gonna go to the body fat factors. So for the body fat factors, I gave her a check on pretty much everything. She has a pretty leaned out face, which is also very, very good. And yeah, she scores perfectly on the side and also the front as well. All right, so the miscellaneous features is the next thing. So she really did very well on it. If you see an X on any of these things, that means that she does not have it. So a check is actually the opposite, which she does have, and you don't want to have any of these things if you want to score perfectly on the miscellaneous features. And What I gave her a check is on the nasolabial folds. She does have a little bit of nasolabial folds. These are the lines that you see, especially when somebody smiles. You can see these lines coming from the nose, coming all the way down towards the mouth area. And if you look at some of her pictures, she does have that as well. All right, so for the first measurement is the eye separation ratio. And honestly speaking, when I looked at her, I didn't realize that, she had um eyes that were, or pupils that were kind of far away in terms of the distancing. I actually thought, she might actually pass this, but now that I'm peeping it, one of the main reasons why I probably didn't see it at first is because having wide cheekbones does kind of give you the illusion of or having to seem that your eyes are well within distancing, because your cheekbones just expand a little bit more wider within the middle of your face. And also another way to assess this is how close are your eyebrows. So your eyebrows, if they're close enough together, or both of the eyebrows kind of almost in a way create a unibrow, it kind of gives it the illusion that your eyes itself are even closer set, when in reality it's not. So sometimes your face can kind of give it some sort of illusion to make it seem like it's something that it's really not. All right, so for the next one is the gonial angle. I gave her a tier 2. Tier 2 is not bad at all. It's damn near close to a tier 1. And honestly, this is not even a bad feature. It's really good in my opinion. She does have a fairly sharp jaw. And yeah, you don't want to have a gonial angle that is too obtuse. And another thing too, I usually don't really talk about this, but from some of the articles that I read, usually females don't have a ramus that is booked up straight. So what I mean by that is vertically up, going vertically up like men do. Men have the opposite, where like the ramus actually goes up vertically. So as you can see right here, hers is kind of has like a tilt to it, which is normal. But for men, the difference between men is that their ramus literally shoots up straight. So that is one of the main reasons why men have a sharper just gonial angle in general as well. So yeah. All right, so the next one is the mandibular plane angle, and that is at 17 degrees. So this is really not bad at all. And another thing too is you don't want to have a mandibular plane angle that is very flat. And I've been, been rating subscribers' faces lately, so that's why I haven't really, have gone crazy with these celebrity faces. Not saying that I can't, start rating these celebrity faces more often than I want to. But since I'm, rating a lot of my subscriber faces, it does take time to assess the measurements. I've noticed with a lot of my subscribers, they do have very flat mandibular plane angles. And that is something that I've noticed a lot of people do kind of actually fail on, is that their mandibles are a little bit too flat, when in reality, your mandible is actually supposed to have a downward tilt to it. If it doesn't have a downward tilt to it, it wouldn't look aesthetically pleasing. And I know some people may disagree with that, but you just don't want it to look very flat, and parallel to the earth's ground, literally. But hers is at 17, which 17 is perfectly fine. All right, so the jaw frontal angle, she has a 84-degree jaw frontal angle, and that is a tier 2. And a tier 2 is very close to a tier 1. That would probably be at 86. Now, the reason why she has a jaw angle that is a little bit narrower, or on the narrower side, is because her chin is actually a little bit long. And I will get to that in, I believe, one or the second slide after this one. And that will kind of explain why. But having a long chin does make your lower third a little bit longer, and anything that causes your lower third to be a little bit longer will affect your frontal jaw angle. And yeah, so she does have a squared chin, which is good. Having a squared chin rather than a pointy chin does make your jaw frontal angle more wider. Just if you were to think about it, it will make your jaw frontal angle more wider. But it's the fact that her chin is just a little bit longer. That's what kind of made this angle a little bit more on the narrower side, but nothing too bad, honestly. I still gave her points for the facial dimorphism for this, so she really didn't really lose when it came to the jaw frontal angle, in my honest opinion. All right, so now to the chin to philtrum ratio. So she does have a very short philtrum, and hopefully y'all can see my mouse right here. Look at the philtrum. Look how much space there is. So 3.2 meaning that you can literally fit 3 times the amount of her philtrum size within this chin size right here. And what it really is supposed to be is around 2, but instead hers is at 3.2. So instead of it being around 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, hers is at 3.2. And that is 1 plus. And that's why she is stuck at a tier 5 for that. And that also kind of made her face just a little bit longer than what it was, or what it should have been. It still is not too bad because her facial thirds are still somewhat even, or I think she did very well with her facial thirds. So it doesn't mean that the lower third is extremely long or anything like that. It's just that the chin could have been a little bit more shorter. I feel like that probably was just one of the biggest downsides to the front of her face. But the biggest one obviously is the ESR, which is the pupillary eye distancing. But other than that, I'll say the chin's height is probably the second biggest one in my honest opinion. But the front face, or the front profile view, is really good in my opinion, and overall. All right, so speaking of the lower third, I might as well talk about the base of it. So she's some kind of have like a wide jaw, and having a wide jaw, the tricky part about it is, if you do have a wide jaw, you're gonna need a neck that is going to be just as wide or even wider, especially if you are for a guy. Now for a female, that's not necessarily the case. You can kind of get away with having a less wide of a neck, which is perfectly fine and it's perfectly reasonable, which she does fit within that ratio at 79%, which is great. And that is within the middle of the distribution. So that's excellent. But for example, I've done a facial assessment for myself. Me personally, I'm nowhere close to that. I'm actually 65%, which is really bad. I think that's one of my worst features. My base of my neck is really, really skinny, but for other people, that might be the complete opposite. But but even though this is not a dimorphic feature for a female, for a man, it's a huge feature that is going to cost a lot of points if you don't have a wide neck. But yeah, the base of the neck is something that is, I feel like it's an underrated feature overall, and it's something that you shouldn't look past. All right, so let's talk about the radius E line in her side view profile. And I gave her a tier 1. And the reason why I gave her a tier 1 is because, okay, so even though the lips look like they're a little bit far away from the actual tangent line that you see, for me personally, what I did was, I'm not going by, like, oh, it has to be this millimeters away or that millimeters away. I'm going mostly on the ratio. So the ratio meaning, let's say it's the bottom lip is 2 millimeters and the top lip is 4 millimeters, which means that there's a 50% ratio, when in reality, that's what it needs to be, within around the 50% ratio. I'm just going to go by ratios, or even if it's 2 to 3 and it's a 60% ratio, as long as it's closer to that 50% mark rather than the 100% mark, I'm going to consider it a tier 1 based off of the ratios. If you have the right ratios, I'm just going to give you the tier. So I'm going to only go off of ratios. Before, I just usually went off the eyes just to see, like, does it look like it looks perfect or no? But yeah, so the bottom lip is supposed to be more closer to the tangent line than the upper lip. And another thing too is, I'm gonna just point it out right now, I want y'all to notice how projected her chin is. Her chin is extremely projected, all right? And she doesn't have very prominent lips. I know it might look like it, but she really doesn't really have prominent lips. Her Z angle was very, very high, meaning that her lip projection was very low. and she doesn't have protrusion of the mouth either, where the upper jaw incisors or the lower jaw incisors protrude forward. So pretty much kind of like something that you will see like within African Americans. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about, but yeah, her chin is doing majority of the work. All right, so the H Holloway line, and that is a tier one, and she did very good with this lip measurement as well. And all you need is from the upper lip down to the chin, the bottom lip is supposed to touch that tangent line, which it does. That's why I see that blue right there. And it should not go past that line, and it should not be behind the line. So they do line up very well. So she does have very good lip alignment. And then the S line is, I believe that's the only lip assessment that she did fail, just ever so slightly. If you look very closely, I know y'all probably can't see it, but I know y'all watching my videos through on your phone through YouTube. If you could zoom through, just try to zoom through here real quick so y'all can see. If you look very carefully, her upper lip is actually behind the tangent line, and her bottom lip is actually behind that tangent line as well. What you need to have is the upper and bottom lip touching that tangent line, which is not. So that's why I gave it a tier 3. If she had one of those lips touching that tangent line, I probably would have considered it a tier 2. And then the bursal line, the B, or most people call it the B line, just for short, and is another way to assess whether you have a overbite or underbite with the B line as well. Is one of the ways that you can assess it. I gave her a tier 1 for this, and it's only because even though the upper and bottom lip barely passes the line, I gave her it because of the right ratios. So yes, it might not look like the neurotypical image that you will see for a perfect B line, but in terms of ratios, it's still a tier 1. I know her lips are more on the recessed side of things, but if we look at it and we look at it for what it is in terms of the ratios, it's a tier 1. Even though her bottom lip barely passes the line, I know you might have to zoom it to see it. It just barely does. She does have lips that are not prominent, just for whatever reason. That's just how it is. But her chin is doing majority of the work for these lip measurements. All right, so speaking of chins, let's talk about her mental labial angle. And her mental labial angle is 108 degrees. This is not bad at all. Now, the reason why I gave her a tier 2 is because it's very close to a tier 1, honestly. A tier 2 is not bad, honestly. It's really good. I mean, this is a check to me if I have to score it. I mean, it's very good. The lower lip, like I said, isn't projected. It's just the chin. The chin is doing majority of the work, but it's not supposed to be this projected, honestly speaking. Like I said again, if she had, now that I'm thinking about it, if she had a longer bottom lip too, because obviously her upper and lower lip ratios are kind of off in terms of height. If her lower lip is actually more fuller, she might actually improve her overall score. So if she had, I guess you can say, lip fillers and put more on the bottom lip, maybe that might actually help out, her overall score. So if she's watching this, maybe that's something that she could possibly do. I won't say every celebrity needs to do that because they'll take it too far, and their lips might look like some bubble lips that might look artificial. But yeah, the chin is doing majority of the work. Is so projected forward, and honestly, just by looking at this, you can easily tell that she has no chin recession, no jaw recession. Her jaw is very forwardly grown, and yeah. Now looking at her nasal projection, there's a reason why went from the mental labial angle, which is the chin to lower lip, to this measurement as well. Is going to tie into our next measurement that we're going to see next. But her nasal projection is at 0.58, which means that she does have a very projected nose for her face, and it might not kind of seem like that, but just take it for what it is. She does have a pretty good projected nose for her face, even though her just looking at it I can kind of tell that her brow ridge, or not her brow ridge, her nasal bridge set is pretty somewhat mid to high set, not too high or anything like that. I would say mid set, but she does have a fairly, forwardly grown nasal width relative to the length of the nasal bridge. And yeah, so having a forwardly projected nose encourage mid-face growth, forward grown of the mid-face, and that is something that you would need to have. So yeah, so that will tie into the next measurement that I will talk about, which is the nasal-facial angle. So I gave the nasal-facial angle a tier 5 at 25 degrees, and this is the last measurement I'm gonna talk about for this video. 25 degrees is very low, and like I said again, she does have a fairly grown chin, but in terms of the nose, if the chin is very forwardly grown, the nose has to be as much forwardly grown as possible as well to compensate for the chin projection. What I will say is she doesn't really need, if I was to kind of, I would say this: if she had fuller lower lip and less chin projection, because obviously she doesn't have a recessed lower third, she does have a very long mandible. That probably would have helped this measurement, in my honest opinion. But having a forwardly grown chin isn't bad, but for it to be too forwardly grown can also create um, negative effects for the side view facial profile as well. That's one of the main reasons why I said in her side view profile it looks very flat, because having a very long lower third can give you that flat facial appearance that you probably don't want. And flat meaning that your facial convexity is over, let's say 178, 177, 178. That's getting towards the flatter facial convexities. Now, there has been studies saying that women tend to like flatter facial convexities overall. Just because they say that doesn't really mean that they like it, because in sense, that's not what you're trying to go for. You're trying to go for a more rounder facial convexity. And that is also, I'm not trying to ramble right here, but that's also something that I've noticed doing these different ethnicities and races and groups. I've noticed that Black women have more of a rounder facial convexity, while white women actually have more of a rounder facial convexity and more projected chins. And I find that kind of interesting as well. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and make sure to hit me down in my IG if you have any questions. And yeah, guys, I'm out. Peace.